Welcome to a new episode, the latest episode of the Football Italia live show. Serie A Round 1 is over yesterday with a fantastic Roma win over Fiorentina. I'm joined today, as usual, by the great Richard Hall to review all the weekend action, the biggest talking points, everything you may think of after the first round of the season in Serie A. Ciao, Richard. How are we doing?
Oh, it's so much to talk about, isn't it? I mean, you wait for it for so long and then bang, it's off. And there seems to be like a million different stories. And yeah, what a weekend. What a weekend it was.
There are a million different stories. And I want to start with the latest game, Roma-Fiorentina. We had a season preview just a few days ago. We spoke about Roma as well. Obviously, we received a few comments about Malen, Dybala. There were doubts over Malen would keep the same consistency that he showed in the second part of the season at Roma. The first answer is pretty positive, as we expected from Malen and Roma. An incredible game yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, it's gives with one hand, takes with the other, doesn't it? This, because we did say, I think I had Roma in second with the predictions, but also had Fiorentina doing quite well as well. So the problem is that last night Roma were just fantastic in that way. That settled idea of what they're doing. Malen, like you say, it's massively important that he picked up the way he did so quickly. He had an exemplary display, and Dybala as well. Now it all depends on whether Dybala is going to stay fit all season, but if he can, and he can be that creative hub, I still think Dybala is going to be quite influential amongst the goals this season as well. So yeah, straight off the bat, we've talked about the goalkeeper, we've talked about them looking solid. It was a message, wasn't it? Really, it was almost, you look at this season already, and obviously Inter put down a marker. And then it was almost like Roma replying, saying, listen, we're here as well. And I'm not going to jump the gun, but I think in 3 games, they face in week 4 into Roma. If it carries on the way it looks like, that's going to be a cracking game to watch. So, yeah, really entertained to see Roma. And, I think they're going to be strong this year.
Yeah, as you said, the impressive thing about Roma is that they were facing one of the most exciting teams when it comes to the transfer market, who's Fiorentina. We said in our season preview that they had been one of the best teams, and still, obviously, the transfer window is still not over. They are one of the best teams of the summer when it comes to new signings, when it comes to the potential they've brought compared to last season. And it was always going to be tough for Fiorentina, and it's always going to be tough for Fiorentina for me to compete for the top 4, regardless of yesterday's win. In my preview, I didn't put them in the top 4. But at the same time, they're on paper much stronger than last season. And last night, it was just no game at all. I mean, the performance, especially from Dybala and Malen, I think the Roma's title ambition, as you said, will mostly depend on whether Dybala can keep his fitness, can remain fit. Obviously, Malen is something different, because last season Dybala was injured for a few weeks, even in the second part of the campaign. Malen still scored goals for Roma regardless. It was more difficult, obviously, because when you play, let's face it, Dybala is probably the best players we've had in Serie A in the last decade, surely during his time at Juventus, then at Roma, and even at Juventus, he had a few fitness issues. But in terms of quality, he's one of the best. I also think he has extra motivation, because we know his contract runs until the end of the season. He extended it before the start of the campaign. So I see this Dybala season like a sort of last dance before leaving Italy and perhaps Europe. And I think it will be very interesting to see if he stays fit, because if he does, then Roma might be closer to Inter than what we think, even though probably the depth for Roma is not quite there compared to Inter.
No, it's not. It isn't there. But at the same point, again, it's one of those situations, like you say, the more variables need to fall into place than it would do with Inter. Inter could probably lose. Even if they lose Thuram, they got Esposito, etc., etc. We could go through the team almost like that, even to the goalkeeping position. Whereas Roma, if they did lose Malen for a huge amount of time, it would cause them problems. Like we said, there's still time to go in that transfer window for them to address that. But when you look at the way that they set up, it's a dangerous team. It's a dangerous team that knows how to play together. You know, you look at the likes of, Wesley's been good again. We keep mentioning
Wesley was also. I mean, we got three goals, Malen, 3 assists, Dybala, but so they obviously grabbed the headlines. But the performance Wesley had was. He joined last season as a right wing back. He just plays on the left like last season, with no problems. It's probably the best in the league.
And the goalkeeper for me is probably. Trying to think, if I was looking at the top goalkeepers in Serie A at the moment, I think he's just right up there. Absolutely brilliant. Just his distribution, his confidence, his shot stopping ability. It's a huge thing. It's a huge thing. I think he's the perception of the modern goalkeeper really at the moment. And when you look, I always think, I look at Inter at the moment. We've talked about. I'm not having a go at Josip Martinez, but I always think of that weakness. Is that going to be a problem? And you look across and you think, well, Roma definitely have the better goalkeeper out of the two. So again, you look at that first 11, it's good. You start scratching away the surface, and that's the problem. But teams can go through a season, in a sense of not getting a huge amount of injury. So, and again, Gasperini, he has them playing. They know what they're doing already. This isn't like, look, we could talk about Milan against Torino in a bit, but. This is not a new system coming in. It's not, the guys, most of these people know what they're doing. It's very settled. But I don't know about Fiorentina, just to flip to them for a second. I was going to go through their fixtures in a minute because I don't know if Fiorentina were just blown away by them because Roma are that good at the moment. Again, you've got new coach, new players coming in. They've got time to gel. Fiorentina's fixtures do lend it a little bit to the fact that they may be able to recover. Just looking at it here, they've got Frosinone, Fiorentina, Venezia, Pisa before they have to go and face Napoli. So they've got time, but this is an open.
Pisa in Coppa Italia.
Pisa Coppa Italia, excuse me. But yeah, it's still a I think this was an opening statement. I mean, we can't go further than that. It's day one, but from the predictions of what we saw, they've answered all the questions.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember a round one in Serie A where all the top teams won. So in terms of results, probably there weren't a lot of surprises. There were, I think, quite a few surprises in the bottom half, in what we expect is going to be the bottom half of the Serie A table. I'm just showing, just to touch on Malen a little bit more, some of the stats coming from SofaScore. Passes in his own half, 3 out of 3, 100%. Accurate passes, 84%. But the shot percentage, the shot numbers are what impressed the most. 3 shots on target, 3 goals, and 5 total shots. Expected goal 1.48, and he actually scored 3. The first one was fantastic with that flick in front of Dodo. There wasn't much space to receive the ball from Dybala, and it was, you don't see a striker score such good goals too often, especially in Serie A. Definitely one to watch for the Capocannoniere Award, as we previewed just a few days ago. A few more stats, a few more numbers for Roma. You see the rating for Malen was 10 with a hat-trick, and then a hat-trick of assist for Paulo Dybala. 9.5 is his rating from SofaScore. It's probably too early, is 100% too early to say Roma will be title contenders until the very end. But again, if Dybala stays fit, then I can see Roma being up there until the very end. And then it will also depend on Inter. This is something we discussed as well live after Inter-Monza from San Siro on Saturday. The biggest opponent for Inter, I still think, remain Inter.
Yeah,
if they are focused and they're able to switch focus from Champions League to Serie A and remain consistent, they are the team to beat. Everyone knows that.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? That's where the levels go in a sense. I mean, just on Roma, by the way, they could have had a penalty as well in that game. So it could have been even more. But yeah, when you look at that, I think that's the difference there, because Roma have got to keep this team fit, playing together all the way through, in a sense. Yes, okay, they can alternate a player here, play there. I think when you look into what they were really good at doing under Inzaghi, for instance, even it was, if you remember a couple of seasons ago, he started changing things very early on. And they weren't great at that first half of the season, just grinding out results. But it got all the players match fit and ready to go. I think we're going to have to see that a bit from Kivu to in the same way, because there's a lot of games to play for them. So it's a different problem from Inter. They're going to have to fight on all fronts and have everyone ready and be able to have that real quick turn of players all the time. Whereas Roma, like we say, they're going to have that solid team that's going to have to be very solid, very consistent, and stay injury free.
I'm showing you a comment we have received, one of the first ones. It's about something that we're going to discuss later on. So we share this comment. We quickly see, but that's live show. Why Italy not produce any Totti or Baggio? Without number 10, Italy will never be a good team again. Search for your next number 10. We all agree. I think we had a few shows on this topic during the summer. And probably there are good news related to this topic, which we will discuss towards the end of this show. So keep watching, because we'll be getting to this topic later on. After talking about Roma, just one final thing about Roma. Emanuele Lulli, the right back who played yesterday, great personality. I really liked him. He was started surprisingly in place of Molina, who is not fully fit. Good performance, and it's good to see more Serie A players, more Italian players involved in top teams in Serie A, because absolutely this is what we need. I want to move to the next topic, and you see here, fall or not from Kevin De Bruyne. We will discuss a little bit the new general guidelines for referees in Serie A, but let's start with this incident here. Saturday night, 0-0 between Genoa and Napoli. At that point, through ball from Vergara, De Bruyne wins the ball inside the box, seemingly, according to Genoa, I think, with a push. And but the referee said play it on. He scored after winning the ball inside the box, 1-0, and then Napoli scored the second just a few minutes later with Vergara through a counter-attack. I'm showing the image, even though like a picture doesn't say it all about a potential a referee decision. But while I'm showing the picture, what's your thought? What's your feeling on this particular challenge here?
Well, I was watching that game, and automatically, first thing. And listen, I'm not, just because of my ties with Inter doesn't mean I'm absolutely biased on this at all, because I'm genuinely not. You want to see a good game of football, and that's it, really. And I have no issues with Napoli whatsoever. And I've seen that, but it did, for me, it looked like a foul. It looked like he's the way he's pushed him. It's the way the level of where his arm is, the force of what he's done it. My question is, if it, I quickly always switch it in my mind, and I always think that if it was the other way around, De Bruyne is running one-on-one with the goalkeeper, and that happens to De Bruyne, if he's one-on-one with the goalkeeper, ask yourself the question, what happens there? And for me,
exactly.
It's the other way around. It was forceful. It wasn't like, for me, if you look at the way of the starting position of the defender, it's not, his eyes are on the ball completely in the image, but they are when you see it in motion as well. So it's not a 50-50. This is not a coming together. This is not where they've both gone in with shoulders. This is a push with the forearm into the back, and the guy's gone down. And for me, that should go at least to VAR and be looked at and say, listen, that's not a goal. Not saying Napoli wouldn't have still gone on to win that game. That's irrelevant. We're talking about this incident on its own. For me, it was a foul. But yeah, I was surprised at it, because it looked, sometimes you can see things in slow motion and it becomes more real. In real time, this looked like a foul. So yeah. I don't know. What about you, Lorenzo? Am I wrong?
No, I agree entirely with you. It's there are, as I mentioned, new guidelines, related to the way that Serie A referees should officiate the games this season. And I think we've seen a few good examples of how the way that Serie A games are refereed this season will actually help the improvement of Italian football and Serie A, as long as they remain consistent. But I also think when there is a foul, you need to see that, and this is clearly a foul. It's a foul because it doesn't push with his hands; it just push with his with his elbow, with his shoulder, but it's still a push because the Genoa defender is entirely in front of the ball. Now, we can discuss on whether for Vasquez it makes sense to defend the ball in that part of the pitch. And probably he was waiting for the goalkeeper to come out of his line. For me, as a starting point, the move that the Genoa defender made no sense. But at the same time, this doesn't mean De Bruyne didn't make a foul. There's nothing wrong. Sometimes it happens. Referees can make mistakes. And even though there will be a tendency on paper not to, see the referee blowing the whistle on every small little touch, as we've been accustomed to, sadly, in recent years, I think this is not a soft one. This is a foul. And the same, I think, about the Vlasic handball with in Torino-Milan. There is a clear handball. We haven't seen many other examples of potential handballs inside the box in round one. There is one that, to me, is a clear penalty kick. Then again, we've seen some nice improvements, I think, especially when it comes to the game's flow. For example, yesterday, when Malen was subbed off, the referee went to him and said, look, you need to leave the pitch within a certain amount of time, otherwise you go out and the substitute can't come in. So there are a few things that have been put in place to get more playing time, to get more effective playing time, and to actually make the players take fewer breaks, because this is what contributed to killing the game in Serie A. Just too slow, not just the way we play when we have the ball, but also all those dead moments where nothing happens, where players can take a break, and it often happen way too often compared to what happens, for example, in the Premier League. So now I'm going to list you a few examples of this, but also on the Torino-Milan penalty, what do you think with the Vlasic handball?
Yeah, I've got to say, I think it's clear. I think it is very, very clear that it's a handball. And again, I understand what you're saying as well about. I understand that they want to make sure that the game is A, speeded up, B, be more clear, be more, not take the flow out of it as well. But there are certain things where you can't get away from the fact that things are going to be clear and obvious. And whilst maybe the handball you can maybe argue a little bit, for me it's still an obvious handball. The foul with De Bruyne is the same thing. Like you say, you can argue that Vasquez is waiting for the keeper, but in my eyes, if he's doing that, he's backing in, almost like hands should be out, backing into him. But even then, it's still a foul, But the handball for me, if you look there, it's a good image actually there, because you've seen penalties given for so much less than that. When players have turned and the hands at the back and they're giving it. So there has to be consistency, or at least a good review of this. And if the reviews are going to be dead, and they have to be precise. So those are two for me. That one, De Bruyne, that should have been pulled back and a free kick to Genoa. And for me, this should have been a penalty. Look, it's difficult for the referees. I understand that. I know that there are new laws in there to speed up the game, to stop the playing, stop the stoppages, etc. But clear and obvious is still clear and obvious. And I think that's irrelevant of the speed of the game or the new laws that have come in. I think those are just two mistakes. But maybe I'm being too harsh. I don't know.
No, I think, we've seen positive things from referees, as I said, mostly when it comes to having that sort of consistency and to allow the game's flow and play more. And even Gianpiero Gasperini had a press conference yesterday. He praised that the way that the referee officiated the game and the general way that the games have been handled in Serie A Round 1. But at the same time, this doesn't mean referees have made no mistakes. Those two were pretty big to me. Milan won anyway. That potential De Bruyne fall contributed to Napoli win. As you said, they might have won the game anyway because they were pushing Genoa a little bit in their own half. But that was, I think, an important, quite relevant call that was made the wrong way to me. David says maybe it's too early to tell. Around 25 British players now playing in Serie A. They're actually raising the overall quality of the league or not? Your call, my friend.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question, first and foremost. So thank you, David, for that one. I think it's a double-edged sword. I think that when you have, whether it's, I don't know if it's 20 or 25 at the moment that have come in, it is a big number over the time, but I don't think you can say that it's guaranteed to improve the league at all. I think it's on a case-by-case basis. So I've just finished literally half an hour ago, just finished the Inter podcast for the official one. And I've just been talking about the fact of, if you look at the likes of John Stones, will he improve the Inter? You've got to look at will they improve the club to see whether they're going to improve the league. And I think that, you look at Jed Spence, potentially, yes, I think he will be good. You look at Curtis Jones, I think definitely. And you look at John Stones, absolutely. You look at Scott McTominay coming in. Now, if you look at Scott McTominay, David have asked me that question, does Scott McTominay improve Napoli on the day he signs? I'm saying no. And I think most journalists in the UK say no, because what we've seen in Italy is a completely different human being to what we saw in the UK. So it's really case-by-case basis. I think more to the point of what it does, like it or not, is because of the scale of the Premier League, because of the global audience. What it does as a benefit for Serie A is it has more eyes on Serie A from the UK and abroad as well, because a lot of people, there's a new generation of people who've grown up following the Premier League. I grew up with, Totti and Batistuta and the rest of them. So, and there is that level of love for Italian football within the UK. What we've seen, for instance, with the Scottish players like Gilmour, for instance, and McTominay going out, now BBC in Scotland shows loads of Serie A games for free. That doesn't happen unless those players go out there. What it'll do is create more and more interest. Lorenzo, you were saying about the increase in English fans, just going out to watch Inter on the first game of the season against Monza. So the answer, does it improve the league because of the quality of the players? For me, it's take it on a case-by-case basis. Does it improve the global view of Serie A? I think it does, because the Premier League's so big, people from all around the world are watching it. And all of a sudden, if you're a Tottenham fan, you like Jed Spence and he goes to Inter, you're going to keep an eye on Inter. Even my little boy is a huge Inter fan. And now, because he loves Jan Sommer and he's a goalkeeper, he's watching Club Bruges. And I'm like, oh, really? So, this is the influence of the what happens with kids.
There's not even Stankovic anymore.
No, exactly. He's gone. Exactly. So there's not even that so much. But so no, it's a great question. But yeah, it's the influence it has, and I think that there will be a huge focus now on Inter, just like there has been with Milan a little bit. When the English players went with people, and yeah, so it's a good thing. And I think from an English point of view, it's at last. I've always been, since I was 12 years old, banging the drum that more English players should go out, live abroad, learn a language, and do different things. Now it seems that people are actually doing this, and so it's good for English, the national team as well.
And David agrees as well. BBC starting to show Serie A games now. True. So we finished this block about the referee decisions, and I want to list you a few changes that we'll be seeing in Serie A in the current campaign. So first thing is try to challenge and limit time wasting. So as we saw in the World Cup, goalkeeper have 5 seconds to take a goal kick. Otherwise, the opposing team gets a corner kick. Same thing, 5 seconds for a throw-in. Otherwise, the opponents get it. Then players who receive medical treatment on the field, except for the goalkeeper, they have to stay out for 1 minute. And this is another big change that was highlighted by Gasperini yesterday. We didn't see many players faking injuries or remaining down just to have medical treatment, go out and waste time. If it happens now, they have to stay out for 60 seconds, so for 1 minute. In terms of VAR decisions, from this season, there will be the chance to review potential obvious errors, also for faults that lead to the second yellow card. So, for example, the Bastoni-Kalulu incident from last season in the current campaign would be reviewed and probably not given the yellow card to Kalulu and avoid affecting the game. And also there will be a quick off-field review, so not from the referee on the pitch, obviously, about potential wrong corner kicks. If a corner kick is awarded but it's the wrong decision, then from VAR they can watch it quickly, inform the referee, and they change the decision. I spoke before about players having limited time to leave the field. It's 10 seconds to get out of the pitch when you are subbed off. Otherwise, the player coming in will have to wait 1 minute. So these are all changes that have been made to help the game's flow and to get more playing time and to make it more entertaining, appealing for the fans as well. And I saw an interesting stat from Sky Sport earlier today. The effective playing time on match day 1 was 57 minutes and 53 seconds as an average. The average for 25-26 was 54 minutes. So if we compare the two average playing time, it's 3 minutes more in Serie A round, in Serie A 26-27. Interestingly, however, we saw some similar stat in the first round of last season. So last season, round 1 effective playing time on average was 57 minutes and 44 seconds. This time, 57 minutes and 53 seconds. What I want to say is there have been changes on paper that are positive changes that will technically implement the Serie A show overall, but those changes have to be consistent because last season we had similar stats and then it went a different way for the rest of the campaign. So if referees keep constantly follow these guidelines, I think we'll have a more entertaining league.
Yeah, 100%. And so hopefully they do, because again, it's taking things with. There's a lot. I think sometimes when we look at referees and the way that they implement the rules, yes, the rules that are in place look like they'll work, and I'm like yourself, obviously very in favour of what's coming, and it obviously is having an early impact in week 1. What we don't want is to let slip some of the really good work that's already been done, and we've seen 2 examples of that as well. And not get things misconstrued in the middle. It's keep the good from last season and bring in the better ruling. So yeah, hopefully we end up seeing a lot more playing time and a lot less controversial decisions.
Yeah, there were still a few wrong calls, but the overall flow, as I said, it looked much more enjoyable compared to last season. I'm just giving you 2 breaking news regarding transfers because I'm watching Sky Sport as well live. Lazio have signed Pinamonti from Sassuolo, and Sassuolo replaced Pinamonti with Sebastiano Esposito from Cagliari. So, documents are being exchanged. Expect those 2 transfers to be confirmed in the coming days, perhaps, I think, before next week's round 2. Third block of this live show, we have already received a few messages about Juventus, and I'm going to show you one, even though then we will discuss the Juventus game and especially the Juventus post game. For some reason, I got messages disappeared for some reason, but keep sending them. I can see them now. You see here, Ildis out for Juventus. Ildis out for Juventus, unfortunately, and this is something that came out yesterday after Juventus win against Frosinone. It's a foot injury, probably a fractured foot. There is a specialist consultation from Ildis today, but the feeling is that we're going towards a surgery for the Juventus talent who's going to remain out for 2-3 months maybe. So it's a big blow for Juve, and we'll discuss this. Let's start with this, and then we move on to the Spalletti comments on Randal Kolo Muani.
Yeah, I mean, Yildiz, I'll start with him. I mean, obviously, I'll let you deal with the comments after that. But I mean, Yildiz for me is one of my favourite players in Serie A to watch. I mean, irrespective of your allegiances, I think, the quality that he has is a huge thing. I mean, Juventus for me have been on this rebuild, even if it's technically a bit of a slow rebuild. I've mentioned them before, looking like a bit of a freight train starting to gather momentum again. And, Yildiz is such a key part of that. What he can offer, I think, when you look on the pitch, there's one thing being able to compete domestically with a very, very solid team, but to go and win things, especially multiple fronts and compete in Europe, you need someone like Yildiz in your squad. I mean, hopefully it's not as long as 3 months, because I think for Serie A it's a shame. Never mind Juventus, because he's a player that I think a lot of people like to watch. It's a difficult one. I mean, I don't know how you see. He'll be. You can't replace him, can you? I think the biggest question now for Spalletti is how do I change things? How do I refocus this? Because, I mean, he's not the sort. It's like for instance, if you took Malen out of Roma, you took Lautaro out of Inter. For me, it's that sort of level of problem. It's a shame, and especially so early in the season as well. You want to have a bit of momentum. And look, I mean, the game against Frosinone for Juve wasn't pretty as such, but again, at the moment, this is kind of what I'm saying. I do believe that Juventus can still go through a large proportion of this season winning games, a little bit like they did under Allegri at one point. Dragging out these 1-0 wins that aren't pretty. They look the same every week, and you sort of think, but that Juventus had the players that sometimes you get to the big games and they would have these star players, whether it's Dybala, whether it's Pogba, whoever it was at the time, who could just blow things out of the water. And Yildiz is the same sort of player. So it'll be interesting to see how Spalletti then copes with this. I don't know about yourself.
We got a comment from Marcus saying sell Yildiz next summer and use the funds to sign young Italians. I think it's a bit of a stretch in this phase, because I agree with you. We're talking about the best Juventus player currently, and it's a big problem for Juventus. You cannot deny it, because they got an exciting player like Alphadjo Cissè coming in, but he's just 18. I mean, to me, is one of the most exciting transfers made by Serie A clubs this summer, but he didn't get any playing time in the first game against Frosinone. There were a few criticism for Spalletti as well. I think with Yildiz, there are a few opportunities that Juventus have to replace him, but all these options are not quite as good as Yildiz. They have Jeremy Boga, who has remained on a permanent transfer from Nice. They have Alphadjo. They could even potentially, who knows, keep Nico Gonzalez, even if he's not a fan of staying. And then maybe, you have more attacking players. You have him, you have Francisco Conceição, you have Alphadjo, you have Boga, potentially McKennie, who plays as an attacking midfielder. So in that case, you would have a bit more options, but none of the options is as good as Yildiz. And so this will come, I think, as a very big problem for Juventus, which adds to another issue, which is...
before you go to that, just a quick question for you. Do you think that, obviously, Emiliano Martinez is probably coming in from Villa. Do you think that Juventus will move in the window to replace Yildiz? Because it is only 3 months, but that is a lot of the season. So do you think it will... You said that there are a lot of replacements there who can fill in, but no one's going to be of that caliber. But again, to go and buy some of that caliber is going to cost an extreme amount of money. So do you think you will see anything from Juve in the transfer window on that?
Yeah, I think they'll try to get another striker, especially after what Spalletti said about Kolo Muani. I think you have to consider a few options, and you have to consider what Spalletti said about the new striker that he wants. We got a message here from Fadino. Juve missed a lot of chances, expecting them to progress as time passes. Roma, hence some prepared, started with a bang. And I agree with both, especially Juventus. They missed a lot of chances. One, a very big one with Kolo Muani when the result was still 0-0. But I mean, they could have won 2 or 3-0 by minute 60 or 70. So I believe it was a very similar Juventus to what we saw last season, creating many chances at times, but were always unable to convert them. And in the end, they got a big risk with Frosinone hitting the crossbar from a corner kick. So they have to improve especially mentally, I think. And whereas I think that they've brought in improvements in defense and in attack, I still think they haven't gone to the next level when it comes to personality, when it comes to killing off the games, when it comes to, even moving the ball quickly, even having the responsibility of keeping the ball to help the team. I still don't see them in the Juventus team, and I think Spalletti doesn't see it either. And this is what makes him irritable. Probably. I'm showing you his quotes about Kolo Muani from his post-match interview with DAZN. It was a heavy one, honestly. He literally overshadowed the Juventus win, because I can swear everyone in Italy, all the Italian media yesterday were just talking about these statements from Spalletti rather than the game itself. It's I got it here. That is the second part where he speaks about the next Juventus signing, the striker that he would like to have. He has to realize that what Spalletti said about Kolo Muani, that he hasn't played for 2 years, and there must be a reason for that. Sometimes you think you're exceptional level, but you've left something behind that you need to go and get back. And then talking about the new striker, these are matches in which you have to take goals, because the spaces are in your favor. And this is, again, a message that is sent to Kolo Muani. The striker we're looking for might have different characteristics. Today, the space were there, but we weren't able to exploit them. Now, Richard, there are rumors about Joshua Zirkzee. There are rumors about Sorloth, even about Mateta as well. I think among all these three, Spalletti would either pick Mateta or Sorloth, because he wants a classic center forward. He wants somebody who can hold the ball up front, and maybe less able to move between spaces, but with a bigger physicality. So if I'm Spalletti, if I can predict what Spalletti thinks about these three players, I think Sorloth and Mateta as the top options, and then Zirkzee. And one final thing on what he said about Kolo Muani. Now, he knows the players, he talks to him, he trains him every day, so 100% he knows which is the best approach for each of his players, including Kolo Muani. At the same time, coming out with such a big statement after round one and after the player has missed a couple of big chances, it's a bit of a risk, especially because Spalletti had been pushing to get Kolo Muani from January. They got Kolo Muani at the end after years of negotiation, almost 18 months of negotiations. It was a big deal, 50 million, including add-ons, and you can't just throw him under the bus because it's just too risky. Then maybe he'll prove us wrong, because he scores 2 or 3 goals in the next games, and we'll all say he motivated Kolo Muani. But see, today it's a risk.
Yeah, there's a few things about that. I think that you're right. Look, first of all, he's a big signing, and he's been very much wanted by Juventus and Spalletti. I think that obviously then you have a situation where we don't know what goes on in the training ground. We don't know what his attitude like. Some players come in for big money. They think they're above it in some respects. They think they don't have to work as much, etc., etc. We don't know what goes on. If that's the case, or he has that attitude that Spalletti thinks he needs to call him out, then you would normally back the coach to think he's done the right approach, that it's carrot or stick situation. And if it's a stick that Spalletti wants to use, so be it. Now, the thing you're saying then, when you've got a situation where that's after game one, that's a bit disturbing, I suppose, in some ways, because, you think that you want harmony in the squad approaching a new season. However, you wouldn't think that Spalletti is that correct. Well, this is where the extra little bit comes in. Normally, you wouldn't think someone's that crazy to do that, because you think, right, okay, he knows what he's doing. Like you said, Kolo Muani comes back after this, grabs a brace, couple of goals, and next thing, he's on an absolute roll. That's how it seems, and that's how I'd normally defend it. Spalletti being Spalletti, you just don't know, because Spalletti being Spalletti. Because at the end of the day, you've got what I always say with Spalletti is either going to work out better than you ever hoped, or it's going to be a car crash. And so far, it's been working out great. But I would be willing to hopefully trust that judgment of him. I think as well, look, if he's saying, if the attitude hasn't been right and he's not calling him out, well, he is calling him out, but he's saying, look, attitude's not right. We spent a lot of money on you. You know, we know your quality, you've got talent. You're not doing what I want you to do. We're going to have to bring another striker anyway. That won't be a secret to Kolo Muani. He'll know that. Just for that part of the conversation, Sorloth for me would be the man you would go for because he can offer that difference, or the fact they could even potentially play together. But I think it is a warning shot for Kolo Muani, and he's done it publicly because I would imagine he knows how to motivate him. Sometimes big egos will, stand up to that and think, okay, I'll show you. So only time will tell with that one, but I can understand why, or obviously all the media. It was a shock to see that. But knowing Spalletti, well, not knowing Spalletti, but knowing what Spalletti is like in the past, it also isn't a shock. It is one of his tried and tested tactics, I suppose.
We going towards the end of this show. We have a few minutes left, but we have to obviously talk about Milan. Decent performance, I would say, decent debut from Ruben Amorim. We have a question about Milan. First, Fadinho asking if we discussed the penalty in favor of Milan. Clear handball in the box. We agree, my friend. We discussed it in the first part of this show. So when the full show comes out, you can go back and check it. And then there was a previous question from Josh, who's asking your thoughts on Jerry Cardinale approach. You think he can help Milan, or is he serving for Cardinale and his image with the Milanisti? I think it's a positive one, because it's always good to feel the support from the club owner. It's always good to have somebody who is so important at the club being close to the coach and to the team. But as I said already in the season preview, I also think that probably this approach is something that it's going to be hard to keep consistent for the whole campaign, because Cardinale has a lot to do. He runs several businesses, so it's not just about Milan. We know the summer is something different because probably there is more time, there are transfers, there is more attention on the club. So I think generally it's good to have him closer to the team, for the team and for the fans as well. But at the same time, I also think that in the long run, Milan will need a different structure in terms of directors to, be built as you usually see in Italy. Then if this approach will continue through the season, honestly, I'd be surprised, and it would go 100% on Cardinale's favor. But one of the criticisms that have been made to Cardinale and other American owners in Serie A is that they were never quite present enough in Italy to support the team and to give their line. Seeing Cardinale here, it's surely not something that we can criticize now.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the transfer window, the change, I think he's filling a void. Amarin's come in and you've got that situation where there's a lot of change with Milan, and he's trying to fill that void to take some of the pressure off and say, listen, we know what we're doing. I'm here, and overseeing the situation. Again, if football's changed, it would be very unlikely, unless Cardinale has Silvio Berlusconi's handbook to running a football club and we see him arrive in a helicopter to ride at the Valkyries every other weekend, then I very much doubt that, to be honest. I mean, if he does, great, because it would be good to see that, because, the old school directors and owners were hands-on. Football's changed there, so I very much doubt it. And as for Milan, with Amarin, and it's day one, and it seemed as though the players knew what they were meant to be doing. Seemed to know that approach looked good in the first game. Torino offered too late, really. If that game had gone on for another half an hour, it would have been interesting. But yeah, Milan so far, I think they can take the positives. I thought they were pretty faultless. I mean, Che Adams' goal was ridiculous. You don't save that. That comes out of nowhere. I don't even Che Adams thinks he can score that. So you can't do anything about that. But otherwise, they let up the foot off the gas in the last 15 minutes. But positive for Milan. I'd be looking at that thinking, okay, it's a good start.
Yeah, I think it's a good start. There was a mix of old and new, in a sense that we saw high press, a high line, playing that sort of attacking football that Cardinale and Ibrahimovic stressed for after Allegri's sacking. So I think we saw that Milan have a different mentality. They're working to have a different identity. At the same time, there are still a few gaps to be filled. I think they're still, aside from Mario Gila, they are a bit still kind of weak inside the box. I think when they will find teams with more quality who will force them to defend for a longer period of time inside their box, they will struggle more to keep a clean sheet. They didn't even do it against Torino. I think they, regardless of how well Cissè did with his first goal for Milan, I think they still need depth in the attacking midfield role, because I know Pulisic is still out, but it's a long season, and they've made a big signing as a center forward on the left wing and in defense, and I think they also need another big signing, or at least add depth with a bit more quality in the attacking midfield role. Even though Cissè was absolutely brilliant, the goal he scored, it looked very easy, but it wasn't easy at all.
Yeah,
at all.
Difficult. Very difficult indeed. And yeah, like you say, he does look a talent, but that's the other signings needed so that he can grow. He needs to be able to grow into that squad and not be put under the necessary pressure, which is, like you say, as the season goes on, without that replacement of an attacking midfielder, the pressure will all come on him. And that will either make, look, I'm not saying he won't completely stand up to that, brilliant, but yeah, it's an interesting one with Cissè. I think that take the pressure off him, and they do need another signing.
Look, we finish this show today, Richard, with discussing a few good news for the Italian national team as well. Roberto Mancini was in the stands to watch Parma-Cagliari on Saturday. He saw a goal from Alessandro Romano, who has an Italian name, has Italian parents, but is actually an under-20 Swiss international. He scored a banger, really a fantastic goal. First goal in Serie A for the ex-Roma player, ex-Spezia loanee. We had an article about him yesterday on Football Italia. It's still unclear whether he will choose, whether he's called up or even considered for the Italy job, for the Italy national team, or whether he will go for Switzerland. There's still time. He's just 20. But there were good news for Italian football. We spoke about Cissè. We saw goals from Giacomo Raspadori, Antonio Vergara, Francesco Esposito. We discussed his performance. To me, he deserved the man of the match against Monza. Yeah. This is something we discussed live from San Siro the other night. Yeah. There are, from round one, a few positive updates for Italian football, something we can look forward to.
Yeah, massively. I think that, just going on to remind, I mean, that was a great performance. We'd all tipped Cagliari to possibly to go down. They got a big test next up against Inter. But it was a superb goal from him. A good display as well all round, and that's what we want to see. We want to see players, obviously, hopefully he does pick Italy, of course, but who are playing regularly. And like we said, we've had quite a few examples of that. You know, Raspadori as well, with one of the, don't think you could have hit that ball any harder as well. An absolutely superlative goal from him. So it's good to see, like you say, other players really stepping up to the mark there. So it's good to see. We need more of it, though. That's the thing. So hopefully, you know, when you look at the signings, for instance, I know he's quite getting on a bit now. Well, not getting on a bit, but he's a bit older. Pinamonti now going to Lazio, probably being the focal point, how that will help him. You know, Sebastiano Esposito, will he be able to go to that next level? Probably not, again, with Sassuolo, but again, he could be the main player. And you start seeing players, you know, who are going to get more game time. And you look at the two I've mentioned, Esposito and Pinamonti, players who Inter are very guilty of dismissing for other options, and who at the end of the day could be leading the lines for two good clubs in Serie A. So we've talked about it a lot, but hopefully, you know, we see more and more Italian players getting more starts, because they're obviously proving that they can perform.
I'm showing you some stats from Cissè game against Torino. Aside from one shot on target and one goal, this is quite impressive. 88% accurate passes. So overall, he only got 3 wrong passes in the game out of 24. And accurate passes in his own half, 10 out of 10. In the opposition half, 79%. So obviously, when you go closer to the defenders, it's more difficult to get accurate passes. But 11 out of 14. It's still a decent number. This is his hit map, so type of player that we need as Italian national team, or at least the type of player that we want to see more. We discussed Liberali during the pre-season. Now we got Cissè, we got Vergara. There are a few. We got the goal from Raspadori, which you mentioned as well. It's a good starting point. We haven't signed, Serie A clubs haven't signed many Italian players, to be fair, but at least we've started seeing something interesting. And probably the Cissè performance in terms of Italian players, young Italian players, is the most interesting coming from the weekend.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that throughout the season, we'll be keeping a close eye on just what Italian players are performing. Obviously, we can see there. It's, there's Ferdinand's talking about Palma from Udinese, who's got potential as well. There are a lot to watch out for, and he's exactly right there. There's quite a few there that we've said there's lots of Italian players with potential. They just need the game time, and that's the key to it. So let's see how it progresses during the season.
Yeah, Antonio's right. We're not saying everything is perfect and we qualify for World Cup 2030, but we're saying that those who are getting playing time, at least they've shown something good. And I think what's interesting is that some of these players actually play in the places we want to see them most. Attacking wingers, attacking midfielders.
Exactly. That's the key.
We got message from Josh as well. Let's finish in 2 minutes. I want to know from the fans as well, your team of the week. Have you prepared it? Have you done your homework?
I have, yeah, because I actually think that we're just talking about Cagliari. For me, if you look at if you ask me about the goalkeeper of the weekend, I would say Caprile definitely would be in there. I think when we saw that goal from Romano, it just had a bit of romanticism about it. And also as well, we tipped them to go down pretty much. And they're going to have a very difficult season. They knew we had the arguments with Esposito, which we've now seen, as you broke before, going to Sassuolo now. It wasn't going to be easy. And coming up against Parma, away from home, I thought that they definitely deserved that. It was good to see them get 3 points on the board. And hope, well, after the Inter game, hopefully they can continue to impress, because I do feel that they may struggle a little bit. They may struggle, but yeah. What about yourself?
I do have an ideal 11. This article I'm showing here is something I did this morning, checking average player ratings from Italian sports papers. We also do player ratings on Football Italia for the biggest games of each weekend, but then I take the whole picture from Italian sports papers, and this is the list of the top 8 performers from the weekend, because all the others, then after Frattesi and Romano, De Bruyne, Vergara, Rabiot, Esposito, Dybala and Malen, all the others below, the average player rating was 7 for all of them. So I just picked the top 8 for this article, and obviously Malen was the first one with 8.5 out of 10 as an average player rating. Then Dybala, and then Esposito, Rabiot, Vergara, De Bruyne, Romano, and Frattesi all got 7.5. But my team of the week, I agree with you about Caprile, and I think it was... I picked another top goalkeeper, but Caprile was in contention. I picked Falcone of Lecce, who's always been among the top performers for Lecce. Lecce got a 2-0 win over Venezia, to me, pretty surprisingly. But at the same time, it says a lot about the struggle and the fight that they will be in the relegation battle. Personally, I didn't have Lecce going down, same as Venezia, but let's see. Then in defense, I've picked Bremer, Bissek, Camara of Udinese, who scored against Como, and Thiago Gabriel, another Lecce defender. Midfield, Rabiot, goal and assist for Milan after coming on as a substitute. Vergara and Frattesi. And then I tried to squeeze in Cissè in every way I could, even trying to play with 12 players, but it's not possible. So I got Malen, Pio, Esposito, and Paulo Dybala, because I mean, obviously, Dybala and Malen were just the starting point for every ideal 11, for our ideal 11. But then Pio Esposito also, I think, man of the match performance against Monza, even though he wasn't given the man of the match award by Lega Serie A. I mean, Youth was very good anyway, same as Çalhanoğlu. But again, we didn't talk much about Inter today because we've done plenty of it immediately after the game. This is it. Time's up, Richard. Thank you very much. It was the first show of the season, first Serie A review of the season. It's always good fun. Thank to all of us, all of our friends following and sending your messages. We hope that this community will keep growing over the next few months. It's been as fun as usual. So thank you very much for joining me, Richard, and we speak soon.
See you very soon. Ciao for now.
Ciao.